It's Friday, October 4th, 2024, and Fridays are Ask or Tell Me Anything next on the AM Update. Thank you for joining me for another week on the AM Update. Appreciate each and every one of you. Tomorrow is another edition of No Suck Saturday. Also another edition of Ask Izzy. This is the opportunity for you to ask a nurse who knows about clean living and health any question you want. If you want to submit your questions, you can do so at AskIzzy, NSS, askizzy@gmail.com. That Izzy is spelled Izzy. We'll also have a short announcement for our Apple Podcast subscribers tomorrow about a change we're making for No Suck Saturday. That's, again, coming up tomorrow. Ask Izzy and five good news stories we think that objectively do not suck. And now on with the Friday edition. On the topic of Bank of America and Verizon, the latest companies suffering massive outages this week. I had a buddy of mine who happens to listen to this podcast text me this morning, or yesterday morning, I should say. And he wanted to shed some light. I said it seemed to me, especially with the Verizon outage and how opaque Verizon was being, not actually going into detail with any specificity on how many people were affected, what the cause of the outage was. It seemed to me that something nefarious was going on. And he sent me this message. I asked him if I could read it. I'm going to not divulge his name or any specific details that could be identifiable. But here's what he said. The lesser-known fact about the tech sector right now is how much work is being shipped overseas. Please keep this confidential, but his company is currently shopping vendors, probably either in India or Mexico, to have an off- or near-shore center that will take a good portion of that company's software build to work. The reality is the labor is much cheaper, and these companies are making a gamble that contracted labor can manage the complexity of building software. Contracted labor has always been a lever they've used to add labor for projects, etc. Anyway, it's the reason it's relevant. That software is complex, and oftentimes outages are due to more failures in the build process than some external threat. The external threats exist and cause their own issues, but outages like CrowdStrike one this summer are just due to development failures versus external threats. And with more build work being outsourced, I would expect more of these. That doesn't exactly make me feel better. Essentially what he's saying is that as companies, especially in the tech sector, outsource their work to different countries where labor is much cheaper, then these outages that he believes more of a design flaw within the software itself that actually runs a lot of these systems, well, those outages are just going to get worse and worse because these companies are gambling that Ravi in India or Jose in Mexico are going to be able to get the job done with these complicated systems. So a little bit of an addendum to yesterday and those stories about Bank of America and Verizon and the outages that they had this week. All right, going on and moving on with submissions. David Pauly wants to remind us about Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida and the executive order that he signed. This is incredible. Basically, Governor Ron DeSantis is acting as the president of the United States right now. He is mandating via executive order the Florida National Guard and the Florida State Guard to be deployed to ports affected by the strike to maintain order and, where possible, resume operations at those ports that are otherwise shut down. He also mandated via this executive order that the Florida Department of Transportation is going to waive collection of tolls and fees as well as size and weight restrictions for commercial vehicles, which will help expedite the transportation of goods from ports while offsetting operational costs. And he also says the Florida Highway Patrol will manage the flow of traffic from all Florida seaports as needed to further expedite the flow of goods and help goods held up by the strike. Highway Patrol will also provide law enforcement escorts for commercial motor vehicles upon request. Again, that's President Ron DeSantis doing the job that the actual president should be doing. And wouldn't you know, after DeSantis announced that he's deploying the National Guard to make sure that there's no hanky-panky going on at Florida ports impacted by this strike, the International Longshoremen's Association announced yesterday they have struck a deal, at least an intermediate deal, to keep the ports open until January, when a more long-term deal, they're saying, can be struck. So there is that. I wonder if that's just coincidence or not. J.R. Burdick says, just a thought. I see some Congress people are complaining about FEMA giving disaster aid to illegals. Here's an idea. Congress shouldn't pass continuing resolutions and omnibus bills written by bureaucrats and lobbyists and do their job. If you give them a blank check, don't be surprised by the dollars. Yeah. Burdick, I think you might be onto something there. Imagine that. The entity in this country, the House of Representatives, with the power of the purse, they could actually, hold people accountable. What an idea. Man, wish somebody had thought of that, like who designed this country. Man. Maybe Heritage should hire you, Burdick. Maybe that's a good idea. Big DCG man says, more coverage of feds interfering with relief efforts and threatening volunteers. The only thing I've seen on this really that's kind of concrete that I can really put my foot down on is Rear Admiral Buttigieg. He's the transportation secretary. He's really concerned about drones. Don't fly drones in our temporary flight restricted areas of Appalachia. I can never pronounce that mountain range correctly twice in a row. He's really worried about flying drones. Otherwise, I've seen a lot of different reports, and unless I see it with my own eye, I mean, even when I see it with my own eyes, I saw a video this week going around that nobody's talking about this, and it was like a video of a daring rescue of what it looked like a fire truck and a fireman, and hanging on from a helicopter in the midst of this flooding in North Carolina. Except it wasn't in North Carolina; it was from like 5 years ago in Timbuktu. There is a massive problem on the right with just when information is really murky and it's not coming out really fast. We want to invent these stories. Like I saw this. This was sent to me from My Son Lives with Jesus. And he said, I know this is an official source, so I appreciate that, but something seriously shady is going on in the North Carolina mountains with the government response and their relief. And I read the first paragraph of this. I'm not familiar with this source, Robin Westenra on SeymourRockSubstack.com. This is the story. This needs to go far and wide to put pressure on the government to do the right thing and save lives this evening from a peak prosperity. I don't know what that is. Member sent to me via personal message at my site. And this person allegedly messaged this other person that I don't know, saying that the federal government came into Chimney Rock and said they're going to bulldoze the town and bury all the bodies. I have no idea of verifying if that's the truth. To me, it seems like something that fits every single narrative that you want to have about this story. And it's a tragic story. Nonetheless, the tragedy is enough. I mean, we don't need to be inventing things. And I don't know if that's invented or not. I just have no way of fact-checking this. And this is the bitter fruit of the trustless society that we have. I don't trust the institutions. And then on the right, there are a number of figures I just don't trust to tell the truth. As a whole, the right, and especially its media ecosphere, has incentivized just fictitious things. Just if you're not lying, you're at least embellishing to the max different narratives that are clickable. And so I think that's maybe an example of one of those things. So I don't really know what the truth is. If I had to guess, here's what's happening. And I have seen evidence, more trustworthy evidence. I would say that the government response is the government response. They're a bureaucracy. Yeah, they suck. I mean, you have the chutzpah on Alejandro Mayorkas coming out this week after giving a better part of $1 billion via FEMA to illegals over the last couple of years. The chutzpah to come out and say he doesn't have enough money to deal with the aftermath of hurricanes. Now FEMA doesn't because they've been giving all their budget to illegals. Okay, this is to be expected. It's awful. It's evil. And the only way I can explain it in some situations, if it really is true that they are scuttling on some, not just being just bad at their jobs, incompetent, if they actually are scuttling some attempts for search and rescue, recovery, rebuilding, cleaning up, that is evil. I can't attribute it to anything other than malice. But if I had to guess what's happening right now is that the federal government, the federal response is incredibly slow. And basically, you see some of these state governments, North Carolina's National Guard notwithstanding, which I saw today, Sean Davis at the Federalist pointed out that Roy Cooper, the Democrat governor there, has yet to give them mission orders, so they're just kind of sitting around. What I had to guess is happening is that the government response is really slow, with the exception of Florida getting up there and helping to clean up. And my guess is that these people are Americans, and they are doing their best to help themselves and to clean up themselves and to do it themselves. Because Appalachia is still like the real America. So that's what I had to get. I think the death toll is over 200 the last I saw. So I don't know what shadiness is going on, if any. I don't really like the theatrics that I'm seeing in some places where it's like I can't verify any of these ridiculous claims that you're making, or it's ridiculous sounding claims that you're making. I don't know if they're true or not. But when something fits so neatly into a narrative that you want to hear, one of my spiritual gifts is being able to detect that and sniff that out really quick. And I think I see a lot of that with the story. And it's tragic enough. I mean, there's the photograph that J.D. Vance mentioned the other night. I saw that on Tuesday, a photograph of grandparents and their grandson. Last photograph of them. They were sitting on the roof. And then the roof collapsed and they're gone. You know, that's tragic enough. We don't need to make up storylines about this, even though it might be real, but just be careful. That's all I'm trying to say. Cav Cavalier says, do you think the new right that Trump represents will be more successful when Trump is no longer the face of it and his persona is not front and center? It seems like a lot of conservatives, on X at least, dislike Trump only personally for his persona and brand. Normies too. There's a lot of truth in that. So do I think the new right that Trump represents will be more successful when Trump is no longer the face of it? No. Nope. Anybody who's ever associated with Donald Trump or even Trump-adjacent figures will be tied with the Trump orange noose around their neck for the rest of their days. So just removing him doesn't make our jobs easier. That is just the reality. I'm just telling you that. So the right's going to either have to choose between corporatism and neoconism versus some version of populist Trumpism, America Firstism. I don't know what that's going to look like. And I don't even know if it's going to matter, depending on the results of this election. But the last part of what you said, Cav, is absolutely true. There's a lot of conservatives that just dislike Trump only personally for his persona and brand, not because of the substance, which we need to see more of from Trump. That's not wrong. But yeah, I've seen my mentions are filled up every single day with people who, at this point, I'm convinced aren't really morally aghast at Donald Trump so much as they use Donald Trump's moral failures or disappointing or non-conservative rhetoric, non-conservative stances. They just want to use those as cudgels against him and his supporters, even his newer ones, because they dislike him so much. It's not that they're serious about policy so much they just seriously hate the guy. And I'm just sick of it. Let's go. Let's end with this. Banana Republica says, you keep using the word dude to refer to men who dress up and women as women to play on women's sports teams. I don't think that's the right word. Those men aren't worthy of the term dude. Maybe just call them males because they're not worthy of the term men either. That's not a bad point. Here's my problem. I can't say transgender because you're just lying. There's no such thing as a transgender. It just doesn't exist. Hello, Right Wing Watch. Hello, Media Matters. Yes, I said that. My name is AARON. There's no such thing as transgender. It doesn't exist. That's not a thing. There's male and female. God made them male and female. So here's my problem as somebody who's doing his best, not perfectly, of course, but doing his best to communicate in a pithy and understandable way. I can't say in a natural sentence, San Jose State has a man who is dressing up like a woman. I can't say that over and over again in a sentence. You know, Wyoming women's volleyball team has canceled a match against San Jose State because San Jose State has a player on it who is actually a male, but he's pretending to be female because he has a mental illness called transgenderism. So I tried to shorten that to say dude. Now, I used to say dudes who feel pretty. That sounded a little bit more wordy, but maybe I should go back to that because I think that's a pithier way of saying like 2 sentences worth of information. Dude who feels pretty. Somebody who is pretending to be the sex that he is not. So I think maybe your overall point is right. I should stop saying dude because they haven't really earned that title, but maybe man who feels pretty or dude or young man who feels pretty, something like that. So, all right, thanks, Banana. That'll do it for today. Back at it again tomorrow for No Suck Saturday. Looking forward to that. We'll have 5 stories that objectively don't suck, as well as Ask Izzy. If you want to ask Izzy, a nurse who knows, any question about health and clean living, you can do that. AskIzzyNSS@gmail.com. Back at it again tomorrow.